to 180, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I want to give a big shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery. Just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. Find out about their Friday night fellowship, which is awesome. The Subscribe Tribe online. If you can't make it, you can always watch them live on Facebook. They're fantastic gals, and a lot of these people have went through and have stories like the one we're talking about today with Tracy Kovach. And remember, if you want to write me, my email is on the show is steve@180uturn.com. That's steve@180youturn.com. And I want to welcome for our final day Tracy Kovach to the show. If you have not seen Monday through Thursday show, you're missing a lot. And the moment we run this on KXXT, we're going to go ahead and put it out on the internet the next week, and you can watch it in succession. And so many people tell me, Steve, I love how you post Monday show, Tuesday show separate, because then we know, oh, that's part 2 or part 3 or whatever. Watching it in chronology, you get the full meal deal and the picture. And to me, one of the things about Tracy's story is that once you hear his story and how God found him, you know, there's a lot of guys do, I found God in jail, right? And it's really not authentic. And I see it all the time. People say, hey, I led 30 people to the Lord on the yard, whatever, okay? Yeah. So I'm just saying, listen, there's authentic things happening when you listen to these stories. I listen to these stories all the time. I'm so built up. I'm so edified. God can do anything.
He can.
I don't think anybody's outside. Listen, and I confess this freely in front of Tracy. I still have it. My top 10 will not get saved. I have a little book. Top 10 people not get saved. 7 out of 10 are saved now.
Wow.
Think about that. 7 out of 10. And I mean, these guys were awful. And they come to my chapel and flip me off. And, just terrible people. I said, never happened, but they did. So nothing's outside God's power.
Absolutely.
Now, you're in jail. You're doing your time. You're fellowshipping with people that are not of your race, which is blowing the minds of the authorities, the people on the yard, the old Seg brothers that you used to be with, right?
Yep.
All this is blowing people away. I think when the Lord comes into your life, there's revolution. It's not a small migration to the truth. It's like, we are doing this.
Yeah.
And if that means I have to drop my racism or whatever other my prejudice or biases are, it's going down.
Yeah.
And I like that. Talk about that.
So my main thought in the whole thing, when I first got saved, and I seen a lot of the other guys saying they were saved, and then, but if dude called me a punk, I'm going to beat him up. Or, if we have a racial riot, then I'm going to get in it. Or, still have all that worldly stuff in them, but then go to the church and raise their hands and praise God. I was like, I don't want to be that person, God. Under any circumstances, I will not be that person. I will follow Jesus the way Jesus wants me to follow him.
Well, how did you have the Lord, how did the Lord install in you that kind of vigor to follow him?
Just through his word, just over and over reading his word. And when I asked him if he would show me him to me, he just built my faith with all the times that I was praying to him and things were happening and he was protecting me through the whole thing, all the way down to me just getting 2 years instead of 35 to 100. Just everything that was going on. There's so much more to the story that we don't have time to go through because we'll be here for weeks. But so God just built my faith and showed me how real he was because I asked him to, but I was also paying attention to it when I asked him. I was paying attention for answers. I was looking on purpose for answers.
Now, at this time, a ministry called Second Chance Ministries brings in the television show TBN, right? Trinity Broadcasting Network, right?
Yep.
And they're coming in and they're doing parts on different people, and you're one of them.
I was one of them. Yeah, they took me back, did my testimony in one of the back rooms. So in 2006 they did a 1,200 man prayer circle on Kingman Yard, where there was 1,200 men on 3 different yards, holding hands, all races, all religions, holding hands and praying. They did a concert there. Well, they came in again to do it. It was 2008, I want to say it was, or the beginning of 2009, but they wouldn't let it air because the National Day of Prayer was taken away or something. I remember the warden was like, no, we can't let this air, so they couldn't do it. But we went on the yard and did it anyways. So we did the prayer circle, but they couldn't film it. So
was that on multiple yards, right?
On multiple yards.
You were holding hands through the chains.
Yep.
On the other, yeah.
3 different yards, yeah.
I don't want to say anything, but I think I have the video from the chaplain on this.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
I have the video too.
I'm going to have to dig into the archives on that one.
Yeah.
Now, finally, hey, you're going to get released.
Yeah.
Now, when you come out, I mean, scary dude. You know, I mean, you can't go back to selling illegal drugs, right?
Well, I mean, I could have if I wanted to, but I mean.
But we're in the Lord now.
We're in the Lord now. But I mean, at any cost, I was not going back to my old life. It didn't matter what I had to do to not go back to my old life. I seen too many guys on fire for God. They get out, they go back to their neighborhoods, and they're back a month or two later. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, dude, I don't know. I went back to my neighborhood. I started drinking. I didn't think drinking was bad for me, because I'm a drug addict. And then it just ran, one thing led into another. Hanging out around their old friends and all that. I was like, I was praying, going, God, I don't want to be that person. Well, God opened a door for me to go to Teen Challenge at that time. So
how heavy was that for you? How instrumental?
It was very instrumental. I knew that that's where God wanted me to go. So at any kind, I mean, I had people going, well, hey, bro, you don't want to go there. You want to go here or there or whatever. I had the girl that it was her house they drove the tank into. I was trying to minister to her the whole time I was in prison, and she kept sending me stuff in the mail of why God's not real and why the ark couldn't hold all the animals. Just all this stuff that she was finding online, and I was just like, so she never did get it. And I told her, she said, I thought you said you were God. And I was like, listen, I lied to you. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. I'm not God. There's a God. It's not me. You listen to every lie I ever told you. Why don't you listen to me now? I'm telling you the truth. But she never did listen to me. But
that girl's out of your life, and a Teen Challenge.
Yeah. So now at Teen Challenge, I go to Teen Challenge, and first of all, in the prison, I became a pod pastor and a praise and worship leader on the prison yard instead of doing the things I used to do. So then when I get out, I go to Teen Challenge, and I'm there for 18 months at Teen Challenge, and I'm just on fire for God. And man, I had arguments with guys that were going, why are you here? This is for people with life-controlling addictions. I came in here on meth, got clean, and you're taking up bed space that somebody else could take up that's not having... You've been on fire for God for 2 years before you got here. And I go, I don't know. God told me to be here. That's all I know. I'm not arguing with God anymore. You want to argue with God? Go ahead. I'm not. So God never told me what he had for me while I was in Teen Challenge. I was just doing everything with this joy in my heart, just so full of joy. I didn't know how to walk with God on the street. But God was teaching me through Teen Challenge how to walk with him on the street. See, I didn't want to go back to my old neighborhood because I knew it was just a matter of time before I went back to what I used to do. And I didn't want anything to happen. I didn't want to be around those old people anymore. It just wasn't my life anymore. So I went through Teen Challenge, and when I get to the end of Teen Challenge, that's when God reveals. See, this is why God doesn't tell us what he has for our future, because we'll ruin it for sure. So so he never told me. So I was at a Teen Challenge banquet, and I loved the Teen Challenge banquets, and I was on the stage, and I'm singing, and Wayne Anderson, they call him Duck. He's an old biker, gave his life to Jesus, does the prison ministry, Overcomers for Christ, newsletters that go into the prisons. I had wrote him my testimony when I was in prison, and he put it on there in the newsletter, and then he came over and he was meeting me at Teen Challenge and ministering to me there. At a Teen Challenge banquet, he came with this girl, introduced me to her, and I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And he starts bringing her every now and then. I became an intern, and I went to Tucson and became an intern in Teen Challenge over there after I finished the 12 months of Teen Challenge. And he was bringing her there, and she tells me one day that her dad started Teen Challenge of Arizona, and I'm like, what? Yeah, whatever. I don't believe that. I know Snow and Liddell Peabody, they run Teen Challenge. That's who I'm like. I'm looking at her thinking, you don't look nothing like Snow or Liddell. So I go and ask Pastor Rick Casto up at the Christian Life Ranch at Teen Challenge. And I go, hey, I met this girl. Said her dad started Teen Challenge of Arizona. He goes, what's her dad's name? I go, Robert or Bob Stewart. He goes, yeah, that's who started it. I'm like, where's that phone number at? I'm looking all over for this phone number. So we never dated. So I knew that God had told me that was the woman for me. So I threw a fleece out for God. I was like trying to be smart with God. Like, all right, God, I'm an intern. If I'm really hearing you say this is the woman you have for me, then I'm going to need a ring. Well, we went to this guy's house in Mesa and to a barbecue, an old friend of mine, and ministered to him the night before this prayer. And the next day he calls me and goes, hey, bro, you know that chick you brought over to the house for the barbecue? My mom said if you ever want to marry that girl, she's got a blue diamond ring she'll donate to you. I'm like, whoa. It was just like out of nowhere. I was like, wow. I was like, all right, God. So we never dated. I just knew that God put her in my life. And I left Teen Challenge as an intern and moved to Phoenix where she was. And one night she lived in a townhouse. I had already promised God I wasn't going to do anything with a woman ever again until I was married. So, and apparently she had made that same promise with God too. So when we came together, I slept downstairs, she slept upstairs one night. I went to Teen Challenge to get a job there because I'm telling them, hey, I'm here in Phoenix. I'll come work for you guys. And they're like, no, you're living with a woman without being married to her. We can't use you. And I was like, what? My flesh wanted to rise up. I called my wife's dad, and I told him what just happened. And he goes, listen, he goes, even the appearance of sin is sin. All right. So I called my wife right away. We went right down to the Justice of Peace and got married. And then we still had our wedding on 12/11/10 is when we set it for him. And we were married at Teen Challenge by Pastor Rick at Teen Challenge. So.
Well, I love the date. 12,
yeah, 12/11/10.
Yeah. So now marriage, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever think you're going to be married?
Never in life. I said I would never get married ever. But I said a lot of things I would never do that God directed me to. So
once God's in line, the word never is going to be never used.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about, hey, what are you doing today?
Yeah.
Married, ministry, all the impossible things that could have ever been brought to Tracy are all possible because when God's involved, nothing's off the table. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue this. This is awesome testimony. I'm so blessed today. I could almost cry out in an unknown language, maybe. I don't know. We'll be right back after the break.
You know the road to recovery can be difficult, but you don't have to travel it alone. Every Friday night, like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you'll receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight.
So I spoke at Sheriff Joe's banquet and Sheriff Pinzone's banquet.
BeyondFearOfFreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover a best friend forever.
Well, all this week, we're talking about Tracy Kovach's not only bad boy story Monday through Wednesday, but his conversion yesterday and today what's going on in his life. And I'm Steve Savant. You're listening to 180 Turn, U-Turn. And I would just say, if you're hearing Tracy's U-Turn, you may want to take one yourself. I mean, if you're in the highway to hell, it's a 20-lane highway. If you do an about face, you'll find yourself on the narrow road. That's where I go. Anytime I see the crowd going one way on a yard, I go the opposite way on the yard. Usually you'll run into God. So
yeah.
We're talking to Tracy about what you're doing now. And first of all, as we broke for the break, hey, you're going to be in ministry. You're going to be used of God. Oh my gosh, He gave you a wife.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And it was the guy who made Teen Challenge. I mean, it's you're walking into the yard and saying, I'm not really marriage material here,
Yeah. Yeah, marriage was the last thing I was thinking of. God had a different plan, though. I remember God telling me that was a helper He had for me, and I remember arguing with God. I'm like, no, God, it's me and you. And it's like, no, it's me, you, and her. And I'm like, what? Come on.
I'm sure there was a similar discussion in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, you need one. I'm putting you to sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to use part of your rib, too.
Yeah.
So.
I love the story. Now, and when you got over here into Phoenix, you started ministering at Teen Challenge, but then you wound up at your current position now, right?
I did. So there was a lot in between that. So Teen Challenge. So I did actually eventually get hired at Teen Challenge as a fundraiser, and then I became a pastor. I got ordained through the First Southern Baptist Church, which is a whole other interesting story in itself, because Southern Baptists are very reserved, and the old time ones and tattoos are like. I have stories for that, but that would be in the book. But so I applied to go back into the county jail. Well, you can't have escapes on your record to be badged to go into the county jail. So I told her my testimony, the sheriff coordinator. I told her my testimony. She's like, wow, you know what? I need you coming back in this jail. She goes, I'm going to fight for you to come back in. And she did. So I got badged. Actually, I'm a blue badge in county jail. I can go into any jail,
facility,
any pod.
And one-on-one counseling.
And one-on-one counseling. So I do one-on-one counseling. And I know half of these people, and my name and reputation precedes me from both lives now. So now when I'm doing one-on-one counseling, people are like, dude, I want whatever happened to you, I want that in my life. And I'm like, well, I didn't tell you this. All I did was say yes to Jesus. Then I found out who God was and what he wanted from me. And I decided I wanted to follow Jesus and not do the stuff. Because the Bible tells us to repent. That's why I quit cussing, smoking, drinking, all of that stuff. I didn't want to bring any of my old stuff into the new life, because I didn't know what would trigger my new life to get me back to the old life. So I didn't want to bring any of it. I just wanted to repent and follow Jesus. So,
well, I love when people figure that out, and we are burning bridges so that there's no retreat to go back to the old life. I'm going to burn it down so there's no way I can retreat back to it.
Yeah.
And I love the kind of moving forward issue in the Lord. Listen, we all have hassles and the temptation to go back and default to who we were. Hey, it's a truth. But now that you were at your teen challenge, and then you liked ministry, now you're in jail, and I don't want you to say her name, but if it's the person I'm thinking of, she's an awesome coordinator, and if it's a gal, I'll ask you when we get off that, because I don't want to tell stories.
Yeah.
But I just really like her, and anybody that would have waived that requirement, she's golden with me.
Right.
All right, now, so you had some time at Teen Challenge, and then you started to move towards another organization.
I did. But right, my wife was working in behavioral health, and she kept trying. I was working at a car wash after Teen Challenge, and I never again had jobs that I actually held or anything. I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know what I liked to do. I thought because of my prison history and just my history, I couldn't get a good job or a career. My wife kept telling me, you need to come apply in behavioral health, and I'm like, what does that mean? Don't I need like degrees? And she's like, no. Do you have a GED? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, behavioral health is working with the seriously mentally ill and substance abuse. She goes, people like you. I'm like, yes. Okay. So I actually applied to go into behavioral health after 4 years of working in the car wash, and I knew God would move me. God just opens doors. I always know when to move and when not to move, because if I have to kick a door open, God's not in it. If the door just opens up and I just have to walk in it, God's in it. So 4 years in the car wash, applied for behavioral health. Because of my history, they were like, we need you. You got a PhD in life. The things you know and have seen, you can't get that out of a book. So that's peer support. So that really helps a lot. So I worked for a company that my wife works for. I did that for a year and a half, and then went to another company as a case manager on an ACT team. So which is working with a higher level of care, the seriously mentally ill, substance abuse. So I got into that job, and then was there for 4 years, and then ended up being recognized through all the ministry I'm doing. I got approved to go back into the state prisons now, and my badge says that I'm approved to go in all the prisons, which the pastors and all the men of God and women of God, they take me on tours to all the different prisons. I tell my stories. I know people in every prison I go to, and they're just like, dude, whatever happened to you, I want. And I'm like, listen, I said yes to Jesus. You need to just forget about all that garbage. All that stuff is lies. What you were taught when you were young is all just a bunch of lies. So now I'm working for a company. I'm now the workforce development director of a huge reentry program. So we work with inmates now. So we mentor them while they're in prison. They come to our facility, and we have 370 of them there. So yeah. So
yeah, I'm thinking about the not only the life skills that you picked up along the road, and how God can sanctify. I mean, how he sanctifies street smarts is beyond me, right? I mean, it's just awesome. And then he applies it for his own use. Yeah. And then that time in behavioral health at your wife's facility, that's probably a major learning curve. That's probably you probably get your master's there.
Absolutely.
And we pick up things that have happened, and when you're dealing with things, especially, it's not just drug addiction. That's one thing, but you're dealing with drug addiction and the combo of mental illness.
Right.
That to me it's a whole other planet.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's not anything most people will see.
Yeah, it takes a lot to stress me out. But when I worked for the second company as on an ACT team, man, that was a lot. The first 6 or 8 months I worked there, that first period I was stressed out. It was like there was a lot of stuff that you had to do. But then I fell into my lane and just flourished.
I've noticed that the Lord, if you really want to depend on Him, and instead of making some conscious decision to do so, just tell him I'll go anywhere, any place. He'll put you in a place so overwhelming that you have to do it.
Yeah.
There's not like I'm trying to follow Jesus. I'm very schooled. I'll just refry some manna here, whatever.
Yeah.
No, he puts you in situations which are over your head, where you're forced to rely on him. And that's how I see your learning curve going up the next slot and the next step and the next level. And I think that's the encouraging thing about your story is that if you say I'll go anywhere, do anything, this is my life for you. You write my script and I'll walk through it.
Yeah. Careful what you ask for.
Yeah, careful what you ask for.
So in that process, so I was actually asked by the sheriff's department to come speak at Sheriff Joe's banquet for all the volunteers that go into the prisons and jail. He throws a banquet for them. Well, it's just a sheriff's banquet, but he happened to be the sheriff at the time. I remember I got on the stage and he was right in front of me, and I go, 7 years ago, Sheriff Joe right here drove a tank into my house. I go, now I'm on a stage speaking. Only Jesus can do that, right? Everyone starts laughing. There's like 450 people there. So I mean, again, out of my comfort zone, but God, I'm praying and just going, God, you're just going to take me where you want to take me. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, how I'm going to talk about it, but God always directs me to that place. I spoke at Sheriff Sheriff Penzone's banquet, and God just uses me. Because it's amazing to me. I mean, people that I see that knew me from my past life are like, dude, it amazes me what's happened in your life. I'm like, I'm amazed way more than you. I knew my heart way better than you did. And it amazes me to see how God has changed my heart. Clean and sober now for 14 years. I've been out for 12 years. I'm a pastor. I'm a jail minister, prison minister, case manager, peer support, workforce development director. I'm a husband. I own 2 houses now, not just one. I actually have things. I never had nothing in my life. And God, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And it's not easy, but it's so much worth it. It's so much better than that past life. And I try to just encourage guys. And God has made sure that in my life, I remember the chaplain's wife at Kingman Prison before I left there. She pulled me over to the side and she said, Tracy, she goes, out of all the people I've ever seen give their lives to Jesus, she goes, you can never fall. I go, why is that? Why do you say that? She goes, because there's so many people watching you to see if Jesus is real in you. He goes, if you fell, all those people would destroy their faith. And I was like, man, that stuck with me. I mean, it's true.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. But we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And it's important that we be that example of who Christ is in us.
Yeah, I'm encouraged all the time. I ask the Lord, you need to keep me. I'm going to do everything I know to do to be in your word, to talk to you, to unload my sin, confess it like a madman, keep it clean and slate. I'm not always good at it.
Right.
I don't like sitting in under the light like
only
anybody
Jesus
else.
was perfect, right?
Yeah, only Jesus.
Right.
But I want to come to the place where we're walking in the Lord in such a way that, whatever our last days are, whatever years we have in front of us, those are the years that are going to be the big ones.
Yeah.
All these things are just fantastic. But now that we're walking, it's like, how many people, like you said, go back to the neighborhood? Well, I can't go back to my neighborhood. I knew right away I couldn't go back there.
Yeah.
I would be dead, and I didn't even know actually, when I got converted, I didn't even know what I was doing. So I was completely off. And again, when you look about things you've been dealing with the mentally, I only went to Alhambra's Flamingo unit once.
Right.
And it was overwhelming.
And those are the lower level of care. The higher level of care was the ones I was working with.
Yeah.
But here's so I want to be able to tell this story. So I actually seen my mother and my father again. Seen my mom for the first time in 35 years. My dad for the first time in 40 years.
Wow.
I actually led my mother to the Lord. My dad never. They're both passed away now. But my dad never. He didn't want to believe in Jesus. He didn't want to talk about any of that. He never said he was sorry for anything happening in my life. My mother was broken about it, and I felt so bad for her because it really affected her before she died. And I kept telling her, it's all good. You know what I mean?
I think it's huge that you can get reconciliation with people that were your abusers.
Yeah.
And when you say it's your mom or your dad, it just complicates and compounds it. I mean, there's people that have suffered so greatly. Tracy, this has been an awesome time. Wow, thank you so much for being on this show. I'm sure everybody listening is like, man, there's a God in heaven and he's real.
Absolutely.
And if he can fix Tracy, my gosh, whatever my hang-ups and problems are, he can fix me. So until the next time, I just want to say to everybody, head out to BFF on Friday night, beyondfeartofreedom.org. So until next time, I'm Steve Savant. And remember, no one's outside the reach of God.
Amen.
No, not one.